In January, Anthropic tried to block this man's app. 6 months later, it had grown 20 times over to 13 million monthly users. And this week, he sat down at Y Combinator and explained on the record how the block became the best thing that ever happened to him. This is the CEO of OpenCode, the biggest rival Claude Code has. We watched all 44 minutes, pulled the 7 moments that matter, and fact checked every number he said. Moment 1 is the numbers themselves. Quick context: the guest is JV, founder and CEO of OpenCode, the open source coding agent that works with any model you point it at. This week, on this channel, we put Claude Code and OpenCode head to head in a real build. Today, you get the other side of that story. The man who built it on Y Combinator's Lightcone podcast. Every clip is from that talk. The full conversation is linked below, and where a number is his and nobody has audited it, we'll say so on screen. Moment 1, the numbers. Listen to what he claims, then we'll check the math.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the weekly actives. Our monthly actives, I think we ended June with around 13 million or so. And that's around a 20x increase since the beginning of the year. We also recently started processing around 7 trillion tokens per day. For context, the Open Router does a total of around 6 trillion. I think, again, sort of beginning of the year, we're probably at around 300 billion or so. And then in terms of sort of our revenue off of our subscription product, and if you were to pay per token with our inference, and you took, let's say, June's data and extrapolated for the year, that would be around 31 to 33 million or so. And if you took last week's data and extrapolated for the year, that's around 38 to almost 40 million.
Here's the fact check. Y Combinator's own promotion confirms 13 million monthly actives and 4.6 million weekly. The 20x claim is actually understated. 650,000 users in January to 13 million in June is 20x in 6 months, not a year. The open router comparison is the one to hold loosely. 7 trillion tokens a day is his number, repeated by YC. Open Router's independently reported figure is around 4 trillion a day. So the direction holds. But nobody outside the company has audited it. And one thing he said quietly that matters: 160,000 people pay $10 a month. That's real subscription revenue, not just free users. Moment 2, the block. This is the part everyone will clip this week, but the details are better than the headline.
Again, to sort of contextualize this, we were at around 650,000 monthly active users to begin the year. And the first week of January, we started to sort of hear some rumblings around Anthropic trying to clamp down on people using OpenCode, but using Claude Code subscriptions on there. And this was a very sort of common way to kind of use the Claude Code subscription. And the way I think that sort of blocked it, or they were trying to block it, was if the system prompt mentioned literally the word OpenCode, they would sort of reject the request. But of course, a lot of users weren't happy. And when they had kind of done that, what it inadvertently did was it put OpenCode and Claude Code on the same sort of pedestal. It like equated the two products in some ways, and even for the people that weren't using OpenCode at the time, they sort of took notice of the fact that Claude Code is taking that kind of an action against OpenCode.
You got new users because people heard about you for the first time and they're like, "Oh, Claude Code's like banning this thing or like clamping down on this thing."
We verified that timeline. January 9th, Anthropic started rejecting third-party requests, including, at one point, any request whose system prompt contained the word OpenCode. February 19th, the terms of service made the ban formal. And in April, Anthropic announced that subscriptions cover no third-party harness at all. Every step was Anthropic, protecting a subsidized subscription, which is rational. And every step put OpenCode's name next to Claude Code's in 1,000 headlines. Free advertising, delivered by your biggest competitor. That's the pedestal effect. And remember that word, you'll need it at the end of this video. Moment 3, where the growth actually came from. This is the part Silicon Valley keeps missing.
Most people in the world still haven't experienced the magic of a coding agent. And, it's been almost a year, and I'm sure, like it's sort of hard to remember maybe for you guys as well. But the first time you had this experience, it's a magical experience. And when we had felt that for ourselves, we had sort of recognized that, you know, how important that moment is in sort of tech history, I guess. It comes along once every sort of generation or so. And the way we sort of looked at that was, let's take that to as many people in the world as possible, have them sort of experience something similar, because the frontier models and the frontier labs charge so much per token that it's going to be hard for a lot of people across the globe to have that experience. And we wanted to make sure they had that with us in some way. And you can kind of see that with sort of China being kind of number one at 17%.
That's crazy. I feel like you're probably the only YC company in history that has meaningful usage in China. So because it's so much cheaper, it's huge in developing countries. Like Indonesia is 4% of your traffic. Brazil is 5% of your traffic. Places like Vietnam, places where a $200 a month Claude Code subscription is like very expensive.
17% of usage from China, 4% Indonesia, 5% Brazil. A $200 a month coding subscription is a luxury purchase in most of the world, and nobody was seriously serving those developers. The scale came from the market, everyone else priced out. Moment 4, the day the data flipped. There was one specific month when open models became good enough for real work. And he can name it because he watched it happen in his own dashboard.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think it was like probably 2.4. I forget the sort of exact model, but yeah, this was February of this year, where for a 4-week span, and this had never happened in our data before. And I think we're sort of fortunate to be able to see this global usage. And so a lot of times we see the comparison of, these open source models versus some of the frontier ones. And we had noticed for the first time that a bunch of users were just using Kimi way more than they were using the Anthropic models. It was sort of Sonnet plus Opus at the time together. And that's the point when we were like, oh, I think we should launch a subscription product, because now maybe these models actually do make sense for real work. I'll sort of caveat this by saying that DeepSeek Flash, being as cheap as it is, allows a lot of users to extend how much they can use a coding agent, because as they get closer to, let's say, their daily or weekly limits, they can switch over to one of these very cheap models, in this case DeepSeek Flash, to sort of get the rest of their work done.
February of this year, Kimi outused Sonnet and Opus combined for 4 straight weeks. And that single chart convinced them to launch the paid plan. The dashboard is public, by the way, opencode.ai/data. We checked it. DeepSeek Flash leads on token volume, and GLM 5.2 is nearly tied with DeepSeek Pro on users. While Twitter argues about which model is winning, he just posts the chart. Quick pause. If this is useful, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Want to back what we build? Become a member on YouTube or a subscriber on Facebook. That's the ask. 3 moments left. The next one is a business model you can steal. Moment 5, the economics. Ads used to be how you bought users. Now it's tokens. And listen to how the funnel actually pays for itself.
The new ads is
Yes.
rather than ads, the CAC is rather than paying for ads, is paying for tokens.
Yeah, it's because that's how people sort of experience that kind of magic moment. And that's the way we sort of get them into using the product, understanding what a coding agent is. All this stuff is definitely like, a little too much for a lot of people. And I think the part here in terms of the unit economics that kind of works out is, if you're actually paying per token, There, in the case of Anthropic and in the case of how we sort of operate as well, we're able to get, at least in our scenario, we're able to get volume discounts because of the amount of tokens that we sort of serve. And so when you pay per token, that effectively turns into our margin. In our case, the inbounds that we get are typically just like, hey, there are a bunch of people at this company, at our company, using you guys. Can you fill out the security questionnaire? And we're just like, oh, first off, I didn't know. I didn't know we had users there. But secondarily, give us a second.
You really know you have product market fit when like enterprises are bugging you to sign the security agreement so they can use your product.
Just like, please do this because I don't know who you guys are, but a bunch of us are using this.
Free tokens are the ad spend. Volume discounts are the margin. And product market fit is when a Fortune 500 security team emails you saying, please sign out paperwork. People here are already using you. He says a dozen top Fortune 500 companies have a significant footprint. His numbers, not audited. But the RAMP story is public. A team at RAMP ran a Slack bot on OpenCode's embedded server before OpenCode had even done that internally. Moment 6, the playbook. If you're building anything right now, this is the strategy section, and it starts with why the product is even called OpenCode.
Yeah, it's funny, the name OpenCode like literally comes from that. I think we'd done a similar project in the past. It was called OpenNext, and the idea was when you've got a dominant, or in this case, two dominant players in the market, the rest of the market coalesces around an open alternative, and picking that position ends up being really valuable because if you pick it, it's very hard for somebody else to displace you. And if it's open, you should try and become the default as quickly as possible. So when we had launched, the name was a very deliberate choice. The fact that we wanted to support, even at the time of launch, we said we had claimed that we supported 70 plus models and providers. Just to make that happen, we look at Claude Code and we go, this is fundamentally different from using autocomplete, using AI in that form. And this is something that actually does make sense for us as a kind of a core developer. We're sort of Vim users at the time. And so Cursor didn't necessarily resonate with us as much. But watching sort of Claude Code and sort of using it a little bit, we kind of realized that it wasn't up to the standard of some of these other terminal UIs like the NeoVims of the world. And we wanted to build something like that. It's a terminal UI. It's a complete storefront. It was sort of a fun pet project, but it showed off what we could actually do.
Wait. So your product was a terminal UI for buying coffee, in case you wanted to buy coffee without leaving your terminal.
Because the idea was, you're a hardcore developer. You're in the terminal all day. You can't be bothered to open up a browser, right? So you go SSH terminal.shop and you order coffee over SSH.
3 rules hiding in there. 1. When a market has 2 dominant closed players, the open seat is empty. And whoever takes it first is very hard to remove. They even built models.dev, a separate open database, just to honestly claim 70 plus models on day 1. 2. Build for the audience you actually understand. They were terminal people, so they outcrafted Claude Code's terminal interface specifically. 3. Eccentric taste compounds. A coffee shop you order from over SSH sounds like a joke, right up until the same taste ships the #1 open source coding agent. Moment 7. The part that changes how the whole story reads. This overnight success is a 16-year-old company.
So this legal entity is almost 20?
Yeah. So we incorporated in 2010.
So it's a 16-year-old legal entity.
Yeah.
And you've had successful products before, but OpenCode is the most successful.
Yeah.
And so it took 16 years since you started the company to have like a truly runaway success product.
I looked at the numbers, and you did 9 applications from 2016 up to 2021 when you got accepted.
Oh, wow.
And you did 4 interviews. And for all of these, they were all different ideas, but it was the same legal entity.
It was the same legal entity, yeah.
And the same founders.
And the same co-founders.
founders.
too.
Yeah, it was Frank
been
and
you and Frank doing it the whole time.
Yeah, doing the whole time.
It was really more a journey that took 10 years to get to 0 to 30 million in 8 months.
Yeah. And I think a part of that was obviously, us being fortunate to have the ability to sort of do that, which was basically just living with parents for a bunch of time and we ran out of money. But yeah, maybe a combination of being a little thick-headed and seeing positive progress.
9 Y Combinator applications, 4 interviews, 16 years on one legal entity. And you can verify that from the outside because the GitHub repository literally moved from the SST organization to Anomaly, the company he incorporated in 2010. He applied the first time back in the Airbnb era and got in on attempt 9. And while we were making this video, the star count went from 160,000 to over 190,000. 16 years of nobody caring. Then 30,000 stars in 3 weeks. If you needed permission to keep going this week, that's it.
And then when lightning strikes, you're actually in a position to capture it. I think that's the thing that doesn't get mentioned actually, is to catch lightning in the bottle, you actually have to sort of position the bottle correctly and be ready for it and know what to do with it.
7 moments. 13 million monthly users, 20x in 6 months. Verified by YC. The block that backfired into the pedestal effect. Growth from the markets everyone else priced out. The February chart, where an open model beat the frontier for the first time. Tokens as the new ad spend, with enterprises begging to sign paperwork. The open position playbook. Take the open seat before someone else does. And 16 years of grinding before the overnight success. We condensed all of it into the Pedestal playbook, a free PDF with the verified timeline of the block, every number with its source and audit status, and the 7 strategy rules with time-stamped quotes from the full talk. Comment the word pedestal on this video and our assistant sends it over. Or grab it at hyperautomationlabs.co/free/pedestal. Real talk. 90% of you watching haven't subscribed. On Facebook, subscribe is the supporter button. That is what keeps the lights on here. On YouTube, it's free and it tells the algorithm to send you more. Subscribe to support us. If you're starting out with AI coding tools, the beginner guides are linked below. The complete Claude code guide, the Codex guide, the Cowork sales guide, and the architect prep kit. Step by step from zero. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as Hyper Automation Labs. Same name everywhere. And whatever you're building, 16 years is not too long, and a block from a giant might be your best ad ever. See you in the next one.